Hello everybody, this is Plywood coming at you with another speedrun, this time of Pampas and Selene, The Maze of Demons, the new game from Unepic Games. This run is a solo run, any percent, done in 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 27 seconds. So, this game is a spiritual sequel to The Maze of Gallius from Konami, and it has similar elements to that game. This game also came out on the MSX last year, and this is the updated Steam/PC version. I helped with the testing of this game and gave feedback on the speedrun mode. So this game is near and dear to my heart in a certain respect. So obviously I'm a bit hashtag biased when I say this game is pretty fun. So this run, we have several things we need to accomplish in order to beat the game. The goal of the game is to defeat enough of the demons, the bosses, in this castle called Mogdos in order to collect all the demon hearts and use all those hearts to eventually open a doorway to the final boss and defeat the final boss. In order to do that, we have various objectives we need to accomplish to make that as fast as possible. The start of this run involves a lot of busy work, so to speak. We are going to be upgrading Selene's magic and Pampas's bow and arrow. And in order to do that, we need to follow some quest lines given to us by the gods of this castle. Pampas is a knight, and because he's a knight, he has very useful armor that actually allows him to take more damage than Selene. Whereas Selene is a magic caster that can be better described as a glass cannon. Now, if you're playing this game casually, both characters get to be pretty powerful by the end of the game if you know how to navigate the castle and get the various special items. But in this run, we won't be collecting quite as much to upgrade Pampas. So Selene will be our primary damage dealer, but we will be using both of them throughout, as you can swap between them at any time. Right now, we have collected the Flame Spirit and brought it back to Hecate in order to start a quest to burn a bunch of those green oozy slimes. And that will be important because the Hecate quests are required to beat the game, and they also upgrade Selene along the way. Right there, we took out a barrel and got a bunch of arrows. There's a few spots in the game where if you break a barrel, there's always going to be a bunch of something in it, and that's beneficial for our economy. Economy is very important in this game. Your arrows, your mana, which is Selene's ammunition, and your gold. The gold allows us to buy ammunition and health, along with getting various items that will be necessary to beating this game fast. What we just got is a soul gem ability. The first thing we bought from the first shop is the soul gem. Essentially, once you defeat enemies a certain number of times, you will get a special ability that enemy represents. And with that ability, we can use that ability to either fight enemies or get special benefits for our characters. Using this throughout the run is very important, as it will save us time, both for fighting enemies and for clearing dungeons out quickly. We've collected both the bow and silk to upgrade Pampas's bow. Now Apollo wants us to fight enough bats with the bow and arrow, similar to Hecate wanting us to burn the green slimies with Selene. The blood quest for Pampas is not required, but it does give us some ammo, which is useful. This secret requires you to do several jumps in a row, In the speedrun mode, the secret chests give you all money rather than a combination of money and ammunition as it does in the standard mode. This is one of several adjustments that the speedrun mode has in order to make the run more consistent and more fun in certain respects. So we picked up the bucket down in the water area, and the bucket is very helpful as whenever you are set on fire, you can use the bucket to douse yourself of the flames. And that's pretty good. It will save our life at various points during this run. Technically, you don't need the bucket, but that would be a very hard optimization to make. We've killed enough scorpions to get the scorpion power, which we will be using momentarily to do a skip in terms of our movement. That is Uranus, and Uranus will allow us to get wings to fly up those levitators with the bubbles. As you can see, Scorpion Poison allows us to destroy that Axe Knight above us. Otherwise, you'd have to go to the opposite side of the room and fight the Axe Guard that way. So you can see the power of these soul gem abilities right now. Up next on the agenda is getting the beeswax in order to create wings for our characters. As you may have noticed, we destroyed some rubble at walls, and that allows us to warp around this central castle area. Very useful, of course. Take out one of these bees for the wax, and then we get Worms Armageddon from the silkworms. This is one of the best abilities in the game, as we will see later. Very tough jump. Sadly, I messed it up. There are a handful of jumps throughout this game where you need to be on just the edge to be able to save time. It's okay though, it's not a huge loss, but it is annoying. Now we have all of the wax, the honey, whatever, but we need to take out these mushrooms, which we use the Worms Armageddon ability to achieve. And that allows us to avoid having to go around the water and fight the mushrooms that way. That key will allow us to go to new areas in the castle. As we approach Uranus, we now have the wings, and now we are ready to venture out into the castle to get some more items for us to start completing dungeons. You can complete Dungeon 1 earlier than this, but the thing is in terms of efficiency, we want to get out of the way some errands, such as going into the various dungeons, or realms as they're called, to create waypoints, as later on we'll be able to teleport to these places with the orb item. In this room, we are going to be getting the umbrella, which is a sleeper item, but very useful as it allows us to slowly float whenever we hold the jump button. And this opens up opportunities both in terms of fighting enemies and platforming. And it can save your butt from time to time too. So this was a mistake. You want to wait out on that dagger skeleton and then jump. Otherwise you're waiting longer. And a nice little room reset for these floating platforms, which you'll see a few times during this run. Up at the top here, we are going to get the piggy bank, and the piggy bank is going to give us lower shop costs for both ammunition and for special items. Now, it's possible that in a later revision of this route you wouldn't get the piggy bank, but then you're going to have to plan your money around that reality. For now, it's a nice little diversion to make our economy a bit easier. Down this way, we are going to get a very important speedrun item, the boots. The boots allow us to move faster. And I don't think I need to explain it any further than that. This lava area, really got to be careful because falling into the lava essentially is death. And the lava replaces the water in your bucket with lava, so you can't put yourself out easily. In this room, we need to wait several seconds, do nothing, and a secret passageway will open for our next secret chest. As you can see, the secret chests are very important for us to have the money we need to achieve the goals we need to do. And as we will see later on, having money is a nice insurance policy when things go wrong. Now, one useful thing Pampas can do is block with his shield, and we made good use of it there in the jellyfish room. Sometimes it's just better to block, especially if you would get knocked off of a ledge. With good timing here, we can avoid these axe throwers throwing an axe at us. Very useful. And here we have more brooms. These are very annoying enemies. The dust is pretty deceiving, but they are guarding an important item, the Tome of Mental Agility, and that's going to allow Selene to move while attacking and attack faster. So that is just a straight upgrade to Selene in terms of her mobility and her damage per second. So can't really miss that one. And we float up the levitator. These ghosts are going to give us the Ghost Assassin gem ability, which will be quite important for the next dungeon. If you run into a ghost, it stuns you, so don't want that to happen. And here is arguably the most important item in the game. Definitely in the top 3, the portal. The portal allows you to teleport either to your last save point or the last gravestone you destroyed. And this creates a lot of interesting routing opportunities and allows us to take certain things more safely by being able to halo out of a dungeon with the first item we got in the game, which warps us to the start of the castle, get health, and then return to the dungeon in no time. This, among many other things, you will see why Portal is super useful and an item that is a must when you're running this game. Make sure we don't run into the bees as they will poison us. Now, one thing I am not doing in this route is getting the antidote. When we fought the scorpions, we were actually collecting samples of their poison, and that is to eventually cure poison and have an antidote, which has charges similar to the bucket with the water. However, this is a well over 2-minute detour, and with smart play, you don't really need antidote, but it does make the run more risky. However, we can make adjustments to deal with that. We met with Ares, and he wanted us to kill a werewolf with our sword, but he has no problem with us burning the werewolf first with Selene and then slashing with the sword. It is possible that fighting the werewolf some other way would be faster, such as coming back later and warping behind the werewolf and slashing him that way. I am not sure. I have not done the timing on that. This is still early days in the routing. So we now have finished the quest with Hecate, and that is very important because before we do this dungeon, we need to finish the Hecate quest so we can zap some eyeballs, some monster eyeballs in the Cyclops dungeon, our first dungeon in this run. So as you can see, we're well over 14 minutes into this run, and now we are finally doing a dungeon. So in every dungeon, you need to collect 8 runes, and the 8 runes allow us to summon the demon or the boss of the dungeon. So the key thing in routing every demon realm or dungeon, whatever you prefer, is efficiently picking up all these runes and figuring out any which way to improve the routing with our various abilities. Nice little zap on the eyeball there to make that faster as we're falling down the shaft. So as you can see, we can use the portal here to warp across and then return back, saving a lot of walking. And the ghost allows us to destroy that gravestone and then use Skyward Blast from the head to completely skip climbing this whole area. Very nice piece of efficiency there. Nearly died here on Selene. I was very spooked. I will mention now that this is not a perfect run as far as deaths. I did die a couple of times, but thankfully we learned something very valuable for the route for future runs with those deaths, so can't complain too much. We will get there soon. So as you can see, we are going to use the power of the portal to just refresh our health before we do the bosses. If you didn't have portal, every boss would be a lot more difficult. So Cyclops really isn't that challenging because we are so strong because we upgraded Selene's powers with the tome. Every demon has a heart, and when you pick up the heart, it will upgrade and fully heal whichever character picks it up. So the white line on each player's health bar represents the max amount of health they have, but whatever is beyond that extent, if they level up, if they level up, they can go beyond that. So white bar, max, but anything beyond that, you can still level up. And you fight enemies to gain experience on that blue bar, and whenever you level up, you get a health upgrade and full HP back, which the full HP back when you level up is very useful. So we met back up with Hecate, we met with Athena so we could go meet Hades. We are now going to go into the sewers to do some more errands before we start dungeon crawling again. Unfortunately, I had a bit of an oopsie with this jump. I didn't jump in time, and we lost a nice chunk of time swimming. Selene has better lung capacity than Pampas, so you want to be swimming as Selene most of the time. The reason why we go over here is to pick up the grip gloves, which is an item that has questionable value in a fully optimized run. I'm not too sure, but certainly in terms of safety, it's a very useful item. It lets you climb up ladders faster, and when you get hit on ladders, you don't fall, which is very helpful. Nice little jump there over that water. In order to do that jump, you need the umbrella and perfect positioning. Using the bone ability to take out these spikes. And now we've met with Hades. And we are going to do a detour here to take out this ooze. The ooze doesn't really seem that special. It just oozes from the ceiling. But it has a very important power-up. This power-up allows you to fall through a floor or a platform, drop below. And there are secrets in this game that are locked behind using drop below. And we get drop below to get another essential item to this route, Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box allows us to not expend ammo, so our arrows or our mana, while fighting demons. And that saves us a lot of money, and it avoids us having to stress out about wasting ammo during bosses. There's no such thing. And arguably it makes the end boss, the final boss of the game, feasible with this route. Otherwise we'd have to make adjustments to the route to make up for not having ammo. So while it is a detour, it seems like a valuable detour. Earlier we got the magic ring, which allows us to move faster on levitators. Definitely valuable and useful. Otherwise we are moving quite slow on levitators, and we have a decent amount of levitators to go through in this run. Another secret chest to add up to our money, and we are poking our head into Nephele, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And up here, now that we've completed the first dungeon and did what Hecate wanted us to do, we're going to pick up the orb, making sure to destroy that rubble as we're going to use it at the very end of the game. So technically we could just leave at this point, but we're going to go up and accomplish 2 goals, actually 3. 1, being able to warp to the end of the game. 2, get the polymorph spell, which is required to beat the game. And 3, get Pandora's box. Now, in theory, you don't need to do all this, but it would require some adjustments to the route, especially because getting polymorph now is quite useful for the dungeons coming up, and the only way you're going to get polymorph early is by doing this. So even though you could just not do this, nice money barrel, I don't think it's worthwhile avoiding this, but this is just how I feel at this current juncture so early into routing this game. The purple-robed, annoying people. These wizards are horrible, and they have siblings in a dungeon coming up that I also really don't like. You'll see why. Take a nice bit of damage, drop it down there, and here is Pandora's box. Fantastic item. So we are now going to return to Hecate so she can touch the orb and allow us to use it. This orb allows us to warp to any of the gods we've met already and to any dungeon we've entered. So all that work we did of going to the various dungeons early is going to pay off. And we turn in the head of the werewolf to Ares, and he gives us the mace. The mace means that whenever Pampas slashes a gravestone or a barrel, it is destroyed in 1 hit. Pretty useful in my book. Technically not necessary. I don't know if it's truly faster per se, but it does make the route easier, and right now it's just about making the route easy on ourselves. So this is the Arachne dungeon. Definitely a dungeon that's designed to be done early on because it's nearby Uranus. We are dealing with fists flying, so we need to attack side to side to destroy them. The fist gives us the fist power, and the fist power is very useful for skips. This mini boss is pretty simple. Just get into position and jump with Selene and throw fireballs. These jesters bounce in random patterns, and they poison you if they touch you. So you need to be able to adjust, but with the power of polymorph, we turn the jester into a harmless sheep. The polymorph ability, from a casual perspective, is incredible because every enemy has some interesting adjustment or action based off of what they do when they're polymorphed. So if an enemy bounces, the sheep bounces around. If an enemy is very tiny, the sheep is very tiny. It's a nice, funny detail in this game. So we hit that save point as a waymarker. And I really like this route for this room. It's very cool looking. Just narrowly dodging all the attacks. Here we have the secret chest in Arachne. Every dungeon has a secret chest for us to get money. Very important we avoid that save point. And then we use the fist here to avoid having to go through that little section normally. So this is where we're going to die a few times, unfortunately, but the third time's the charm with Arachne. I figured out a pretty good strategy to make this a bit more consistent. We could use the fist on Arachne here as it drops down, but the problem is we want to save our fists for the next dungeon for the purposes of skipping 4 runes. So what you want to have happen is you do a 2-cycle Arachne and not have to deal with Arachne as intended. The mines are very useful for Arachne, as you can see, but when you do too much damage here, then the webs come out very fast. So what you will see on this next attempt is I will do less damage on the first cycle, which means that Arachne is going to do fewer webs, and that means I'm going to take less damage. And the funny thing is, this is just because I screwed up, but in reality, this is the way to go about it. Excuse me, not 3 times the charm, 4 times the charm. Thankfully, these are the only deaths you will see in this run, and the deaths were fairly quick, but it was annoying. This strat is viable, however, I think you'd need some adjustments to do in the way I was. Or was it the next one? See, look at that. The Arachne's doing less damage. Fewer webs. So I think that had something to do with the timing of the attacks. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look into it a little bit more, but having Arachne do fewer webs like that will definitely be helpful. Alright, so we are now going into the Scorpion dungeon. Skorpios. Or Scorpio, like the astrological sign. This is a very annoying dungeon in the speedrun. All the enemies here are quite irritating. The bouncing skulls, they get in the way, and then we're going to meet the annoying sibling to the purple-robed magicians, the blue-robed magicians, and they do this hands up to the sky, and then they throw these like power blasts to the side, and then they disappear. And you don't have any indication of where they're going to go, so it's quite easy to miss them, and then you have to wait. 4 fireballs on the skeletal dragon will do it in. And we just take out the gravestone, completely ignore the blue-robed fellas. They are not worth the time or energy. And here you need to not attack the purple worms to open the passageway. Tricky little bit of platforming here to get the stone. This room is so tight because, you know, if I didn't have that skid there, I would have been able to get on the ladder and be fine without the skeleton hitting me. And this was a mistake, so what I should have done in this situation, because you need to take out all these enemies, is rather than being so scared and having to play with fear, I should have just haloed back, healed, and returned. And you'll see that I'm going to realize this is not worth it. I don't want to die. so on and so forth, because you just don't know where they're going to show up. So just take this one out with the fist and return and heal up. Being able to adjust is very important in this game, depending on how things go. So we're going to take out the purple robe either by polymorphing it or destroying it the old-fashioned way. Don't attack that one. See what I mean? Like, it's just not worth fighting these magicians. They're very annoying, and look, I jumped at the wrong time. Patience is a virtue sometimes in speedrunning. It's counterintuitive, but sometimes to go fast, you need to go slow. But we can heal ourselves up before Skorpios. Trying to put myself out, then go, just so I'm not on fire during this boss. Quickly lay down some mines. Skorpios isn't really hard as long as you understand the pattern. The stinger attack is extremely important to avoid. It shows up just in front of your character. If you get hit by the stinger and you don't have antidote, the poison ticks 32 times. 32 ticks of poison. That is a long time of ticking, and you cannot use save points while the poison is ticking. Same with fire. So it is something you truly want to avoid for that fight. But as long as you understand the timing and positioning, it shouldn't be a problem. One thing as well to mention about running in this game, I mean the act of running, not speed running, is the skidding. So you'll notice that I am jumping from time to time, and the jumping allows me to prevent skids. You'll see me skid from time to time. Sometimes I'll just skid off of a platform just because I'm done running anyways and I need to drop. But most of the time you will see that I am jumping after I've been running just to stop myself without having to take the time to stop myself. Turning in the Hades blood quest, we went and killed those hogs to collect blood for Hades, which is a requirement to beat the game. But the reason why we do it now is that the hog's ability is pretty helpful for the boss in this dungeon, Moax. These turnstiles, as I like to call them, can only be moved with Selene zapping them, and because of that, we are going to be using a fair bit of Selene in this dungeon. But I would say a lot of this dungeon is touch and go with these boulders. Sometimes you want to take them out, sometimes you just want to wait. Nice use of portal here to avoid walking. So while it does seem like a chore getting the portal, ultimately it's worth it. It saves so much backtracking in this game. So much backtracking. Killing the boulders in that previous room allows us to just go through it quickly, as the boulders are considered enemies. We use damage boosting here to avoid having to solve the puzzle the old-fashioned way. And little jumps here to spawn this ladder. And to get the next rune over here. As you may have noticed at this point, if you press A on a ladder or the jump button, you will let go of the ladder, which naturally is a lot faster than climbing it or descending the ladder by, you know, ambling up and down. As you can see, the boulder turned into sheep. Like I said, it's very cute. The polymorph ability is one of my favorite aspects of this game. but not everything can turn into a sheep. Hence why when I was zapping the turnstiles of Selene while I was glowing purple, they did not transform and you heard a negative noise like no, you can't do that. So this is Moax, interesting boss. We're going to lay down some mines to knock the boulders it spits out back at him, or it, whatever. And use Selene with Fireball and the Hog ability to do some nice damage. If you just jump perfectly, you can hit the lip of the platform with the Fireball and damage Moax that way. Otherwise, slash the boulders with Pampas and knock the boulders back into Moax to do damage that way. Interesting boss that I would call hard to optimize. We are now going into Nephele. In this dungeon, we have two goals. We need to destroy these mud golem walking dirt boys with mines for Hades. This is a quest that is required to complete the game. 7 slashes or 2 fireballs, and then the mine will do these enemies in. Using just strictly mines to take them out is very slow, so we try to avoid that. The other issue is oftentimes we're going to take a ton of damage from the mines or the golems or whatever, so health management is quite important here. Because of the hub and spoke design of this dungeon, after we get through the wings, we return to the start, like with the orb. Left, right, down 3 times will spawn that bridge. If you're wondering, like, how do you even know some of this stuff, the game gives you hints, don't worry. It's not that cruel. It has the charm of an 80s old school platformer computer game, but with modern sensibilities that makes the experience more smooth. And if you're interested in a game that has some of that like old school joy and simplicity, it's pretty good for that. As you saw, we did a damage boost through the crab sub-boss. It does a lot of damage to Selene, but ultimately worth it. And next up, we're going to get the gravestone above that save point, so we're going to do a bit of a circle here. Finding times to use polymorph is very useful, because the polymorph spell is really nice. In part because any enemy that is polymorphed will stay polymorphed until a certain number of polymorphs have happened. So, thanks to that, you can basically remove certain enemies from the game. Now, my timing was a bit off there. What you're trying to do is use the Earthquake ability to do all the damage to the golems and then drop the mine, but I misordered it a bit. It's okay, because we have backup mud boys. So we've completed both of our objectives here. Refill our ammo and go into the next boss, Nephele. This is an easy boss. This is just pure execution. I mean, there's a little bit of RNG due to the Nephele attacks, but Selene does really great damage, and you can only hit the boss once per. So it moves, then you attack, move, attack, rinse, repeat. Nothing to it. Eventually, Nephele will close its eyes for a bit longer, and then you have to wait that out. We just need all Selene attacks and 1 Pampas attack, because it's 1 health short. And I'll swap between Selene to Pampas if I think Selene's going to get hit, just to soak up more damage. Because Selene is a glass cannon, the less she gets hurt, the better. I want her brother, Pampas, taking the damage, not her. So we are now heading to Dungeon 6. We're flying through these dungeons now. Python. We're taking out these purple silkworms for later in the run, so we can get the worm's ability again. Drop them back down into the sewers here. And going through this gate. Nice little place to refill our bucket for fire purposes. And we enter the dungeon. Need to be in just the right position to destroy this angry ghost. So that's why I went back in like that. Very eerie song for this dungeon. Interesting dungeon too. There are no gravestones, so you can't cheese the dungeon like some of the other ones with abilities. You have to just legitimately go pick up the runes. These floating chompy skulls give us a speed boost. Interestingly enough, walking is faster than running in this mode. So we are going to be walking all the time, which is not our usual mode of transportation in this game. But with the speed boost, we can avoid doing this puzzle as intended by doing a damage boost. Speed boost, damage boost. Boost, boost, boost. Welcome to speedrunning. We take out enough skulls to unlock yet another speed boost, which we'll be using momentarily. Take out the crabs and warp back. It's very easy to forget that, oh right, I should not be running. I should be walking, because most of the time this game we want to be running. Though there are times that walking is just better in terms of positioning and placement of our jumps. So here we're going to take out all the snakes. So a platform spawns and we get the room. Up here, I really should switch to Pampas for this rather than Selene, because you could take out 2 snakes at once. But it's okay. We just want to take out a few so they don't get in our way, because they destroy the platforms. You don't necessarily have to take out that many, but then you're dealing with the risks of luck going against you. Just a couple more runes to go. Nice use of the fireball here to take out the snakes quickly and jump efficiently. And now we hit the final rune, which is hidden behind this wall. Get our health and ammo back. We are going to need some arrows for this boss. The snakes gave us the bombs, which we will be using during the Python boss fight. So this fight is interesting. It is quite random, but we have the opportunity to do some prep with mines here. You activate mines by holding down and B, just like with the polymorph, and it takes a moment for them to activate. So Python will appear randomly on one side or another, and will lunge at you 3 times, and then recede back into the side. So once you're done with the lunges, you want to start attacking Python. And as you can see, having that little setup of the mines allows us to do some bonus damage to Python. Fortunately, I should not have thrown that bomb. The bombs are pretty slow, but we are in good shape here because Python is gone, and thankfully we got pretty decent luck there. I do the bottom because there's so much space for placing mines, and the top because it's pretty convenient as well, because we don't want to cross the middle or else the boss starts early. Now that we've taken out 6 demons, we can talk to Uranus to get a quest for the next dungeon, and Hecate to make Selene stronger. So we're taking a quest here to get the scepter, and with the scepter and some essence from the next dungeon, Selene is going to become a monster. Accidental stunnage, you can see how slow you get from getting hit by a ghost. So while the quest is done, we're going to drop down here. Uranus gave us a horn, which allows us to stop the wind, which is guarding the next dungeon, Drakos. So you have to do this dungeon after the first 6 because of the heart requirements. It is not an option. We return to Hecate to turn in the staff, the scepter, the object, yet another quest object. So we have to zap these walkers that shoot the bullets, and then we get 8 essence from them, and then after that we will be able to do more damage to Selene, and her lightning reaches further, her base attack. Very useful. These little raptor mini Drakos things are very annoying because their patterns are random. They appear randomly on the screen, and they can knock you around. So, pretty much says it all. Random enemies, random patterns, randomly annoying. Great use of the portal here to retrace our steps. Technically, you don't have to do this, but I believe it to be a bit faster than the alternative. Get onto this floating platform quickly. This chest has our double jump boots from Uranus. Now Pampas can double jump, and double jumping is great. We are now getting a very interesting power, because this will allow us to access areas we couldn't access before. You may be wondering, does Selene get something? Don't you worry. Just stick around. Let's do a few more of these enemies to get our essence. This dungeon is tough. You need to be really on the ball with your jumping. The enemies attack in direction of your character, so you can use that to your advantage. Fortunately, I got hit there. What you're trying to do is use the umbrella to time your jump and avoid the bullets. It's quite tricky. Every dungeon from this point on has tricky stuff like this. And I did this out of order. You want to use the volley and then take out that last enemy. The other mistake is if I was to leave like that, I might as well upgrade Selene right then and there, but it's no big deal. So we have to come up here. I made a mistake. I was like, oh, I can totally block this. No, you can't. There's no blocking the mini Drakos. You need to destroy them with your arrow or your sword. Like I said, very annoying enemy. But that is just part of the nature of the game, is adjustment, and bad use of umbrella there. Sadly, I got hit. I just had to wrap around. I think using the portal there would have been faster than using the ladder, but it's just unfortunate. This dungeon could have gone a bit better. Arrows are faster to travel than the fireballs. I think that could be implemented elsewhere in the run as well. So the fireball travels so slowly. 3 arrows is better sometimes than the fireball. Okay, Drakos. You essentially want to repeat a pattern of 2 on one side, 2 on the other. You have to double jump and then swap to Selene. And because we updated Selene's staff, the fireball does more damage. And my oh my, does it do damage. Sadly, we are getting a bit of a slower fight. We don't want Drakos to fly off to the side, but still a decent fight nonetheless. Now that Selene is one away from max, I'm now going to be just upgrading Pampas because we want Pampas at full HP for the 10th dungeon. I guess it's arguable whether that is truly the way to go, but oh well. I think you also want to polymorph that axe throwing guard. I think you can charge the polymorph on the levitator, I'm not sure, but polymorphing that axe guard would mean I wouldn't have to wait out the axe the next time. Here's a screen that is so annoying. There's a bat that's parked right at the top of the next screen, and you really want to take out these bats as far as I can tell, because otherwise they'll fly and then you'll get knocked down, and it's just a pain. This is the Medusa dungeon. We have ice physics, and the ice physics are interesting because when you get enough momentum, if you skid, you actually move faster than running normally. So there's a lot of possibilities for optimization in this dungeon. Do a double jump and fire blast the gravestone there. And then here's a secret chest. Very useful to get ourselves some more money. And now we are going to fulfill the last Hecate quest by destroying this ghost and returning to Hecate to get the magic earrings. And are they magic indeed? These earrings allow Selene to blink, and the blink is by far the fastest way to move in this game. The other fantastic thing about blink, there's actually two things that are fantastic. One, you're invincible while you're blinking, so enemies can't hurt you. And two, you can use both Pampas's double jump and Selene's blink together, which is a very cool thing. It allows for some interesting strategies and skips later on. And you can do this in whatever order. You can jump, jump, blink, blink, jump, 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 blink, jump. So very interesting mechanics as we come into the last chunk of the run. Fortunately, it all happens right at the end, but it definitely makes the whole end game feel very intense. This is a high tempo game, folks. We get these two flags and turn them into Zeus. That gives us the Wrath of Zeus, which is required to beat the game. What happens is when Selene zaps an enemy, the enemy will eventually get zapped by Zeus, and Zeus just insta-kills the enemy. This isn't terribly useful in the routing, but there's a couple places where we will use it because we can just zap an enemy and then move along and let the god do his work. Really beautiful set of blinks there on that floating platform. The movement in this dungeon definitely can be optimized, but you know, it is what it is. I was trying to block with the shield while sliding, but I let go of the shield a little bit too early. Here you're going to see me use the Wrath of Zeus on the head there. Very awkward using the bucket on ice physics, I gotta say. But you can use the bucket or the antidote in air, which is very useful by wiggling the stick back and forth. Great use of the scepter to launch our zap further and avoid having to destroy all those enemies. Now these enemies cause you to catch on fire, but if you take damage from some other source, you won't catch on fire during your iframes. Just a nice little usage of damage boosting to avoid unnecessary damage. but the movement is usually very tight. Now the lightning can arc up, which is why I attacked the way I did there, but unfortunately I whiffed. I want Zeus to deal with that enemy instead of me having to, because then I can just get into position. Do our usual healing. Went back in because I went out a little early. Want to be at max HP for every boss. There's no reason not to at this point. So this is Gorgon, who has absolutely nothing to do with the ice dungeon, but it is Gorgon. Or Medusa, whatever you want to say. I say Gorgon, because that's what it's called. But you don't look at the Gorgon when its eyes are open, so you just time your attacks appropriately. Then we use the gem ability from those mounted turrets. If you ever get poisoned, just hold right. Just keep on holding right. Don't ever look at the Gorgon. It does a lot of damage very quickly. I nearly died here. It was very close. You can see how much damage you do. Now, normally I would probably have Pampas take that health, but Pampas was one tick from death, so that was not in the plans. So we're going to do a little bit of farming here of the worms, which will be important for the next dungeon. Or the dungeon after this, excuse me. This is the Kraken dungeon, which has some fun little skips in it, thanks to the power of the double jump blink and all of its variations. I tend to walk a bit more at this point in the run, just to maintain better control of the blink. The blink already moves so fast that you really don't need to run most of the time, and I just try to focus on doing a very, very light jump. You can jump very lightly in this game, very lightly, and if you're jumping lightly, then you can rapidly do a blink. Nice use of double jump blink there to avoid fighting that sub-boss, and again, to get the Sea Crown. The Sea Crown allows us to swim in the water rather than walk in it, and it gives Selene permanent swimming, no breath meter whatsoever. And if you swap between Selene and Pampas, then his breathing meter gets refilled. So you can see between the double jump blink and all the various uses of swapping that it's very helpful that you can swap between your characters in this game. But in co-op, if you do a co-op speedrun where two players are playing each of the siblings, stuff like that is not viable. So while the co-op speedrun should look somewhat like this run, it will not look like this run due to the power of dividing and conquering and not being able to do stuff like double jump blink. It should end up being faster though, because, well, divide and conquer, fewer steps to take if both players are taking steps. If you can zap those tiny little shadow bats or whatever, they go out in one hit. As much as possible, we want to use Selene for movement. But sometimes Selene takes too much damage. Here we need to use Pampas to double jump up here to take out this gravestone. Once again, doing our normal chores at the shop. And we are now going to fight the Kraken. The Kraken really isn't that hard. To time my fire, I always try to look at how they warp in as a cue to when to attack. We just dodge and then wait on the left side of Kraken so that the tentacle goes as far left as possible. And we just rinse and repeat twice. Very simple fight. The only annoying aspect is the bullets the Kraken shoots. But if you can handle that, it's not that big of a deal. So we have one more dungeon to go. But before we do that dungeon, we need to get the Twin Bone, as the Twin Bone is going to allow us to skip a sub-boss later in the Pyros dungeon. It doesn't have to be the Twin Bone, it's just fairly convenient to get. In certain ways, this last dungeon is arguably the hardest. It's very straining, and even though we have all this health, we are quite weak. We haven't leveled up that much, and there are weapons and items that we could get, but are too much of a time waste to get. So we're strong, but we're also quite weak, and we just have to plan our gameplay around that. These electric balls can only be damaged by Pampas, but Selene has the fastest movement. This presents a bit of a conundrum. The brains, they reverse your movement and controls. Or your movement, not the buttons, but your movement. So you have to be mindful of that. And most of the time your controls are reversed when the brains are on screen. They only turn off for a very brief period of time, so you essentially want to think of all these screens with the brains that your movement is reversed. And it's very difficult sometimes to make that adjustment, at least for me. Avoid having to kill all those electric balls, spark things. Now, ideally, you jump across the loading zone threshold, the screen transition threshold there, and then you throw a fireball, but it's very tight to do so. The one nice thing about using Selene in this dungeon is you can just blink. You can just press A twice and you'll blink, and that doesn't require any movement, so you can always move pretty easily as Selene with the power of that. From time to time, you have probably noticed that I will open and close my menu or be a little bit delayed. This game moves incredibly fast, and it's also hard to keep track of the whole route this early on in the route's development, so please forgive me for that. The run can certainly get more optimized and efficient, especially with the movement in endgame. So here's where the Twin Bone is going to come into use. This brain not only reverses your movements, but it attacks you, and the attack warps you out of that room. The answer to your problems is to say, I don't want to play your game. I'm going to use Twin Bone and avoid the problem entirely. So all that worm farming we did previously will be used for Pyros here. Pyros, as you can guess based on the enemy's name, is all about fire. And because it is on fire, it's immune to fire. So our main damage dealer is worthless, and the arrows do no damage. So essentially you only have your basic attacks of Selene's wand and the sword. Now you can get a sword upgrade, but it takes a while to upgrade the sword. And we don't have time for that, so the worms supplements our damage and saves us a couple of cycles. And the cycles here are pretty lengthy. I haven't timed it yet, but, you know, farming the worms takes 20-ish seconds or so. So the other thing is we use the umbrella to float down and do more damage to Pyros. You gotta be very careful as Pyros floats back up, because Pyros takes an angle as it floats back up, and you could get hit by that, and it hurts quite a bit. Pampas does get an armor upgrade, but again, that takes a long time to achieve, so we just ignore that. You see, like, I already lost a quarter of Pampas's health just from that. If you let these fires hit the ground, they create more fire on the ground. It makes this whole fight a lot more scary. Luckily for us, it's over. We have one more boss to go for, and that is the Lich, the final boss of the game. We turn in that quest way before in the Nephele dungeon and get Hades' Vengeance, which allows us to open the final doorway in the game. This wasn't exactly how you should farm the brooms, but we want to slow time for Lich, because there is a particular attack that Lich does that you really want to slow time for to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So the Lich has 4 attacks, and it cycles through these attacks. So it does all 4 attacks and then repeats. The order is random. However, there are 2 rules. 1, it can never repeat the same attack twice. And 2, you can play a process of elimination, because it will never, it has to go through every attack in a cycle. So because of that, you always need to be mindful of, okay, what has the Lich done already? And these 4 positions are where I put the mines. So this one, you just use the blink to avoid the lightning as it crosses from screen to screen. This one is the scary one. The skulls come from both sides of the screen. Now, I want to actually save the slow time for a later, faster version of that attack, but I just fat-fingered the Y button, so you don't need slow time, but it is a very helpful insurance policy because we are very weak, very weak. The fire, there's 2 ways to deal with it. Either blink constantly out of the way, or use the mines to destroy them. You can also burn them, but it's very awkward because the fire has to, like, hit the fire that you're hitting Lich with, and the positioning is very awkward. I don't really recommend that. So you're going to see here, this is why I want the slow time, because they do a lot of damage, and we don't have a whole lot of space. Pampas does better DPS, but he needs to be right next to the enemy. A little bit of an error on charging Polymorph there. You need to use Polymorph for those enemies. That's why Polymorph is required to beat the game. Once again, using this platform. You use the table there. Well, I guess it's a table with a throne. It's a table throne. Use the ceiling to blink out of the way. It's very helpful. You could dodge all of them that way, but the mines are just easier. So once again, using Pampas there for that one is very helpful. And we are going to take out the Lich. That's the final boss. Incredible. We have one more thing we need to do. We double jump and then zap the cross. Because he thinks he's immortal, but he ain't. And that's game. 109-27 celebratory mines to plant. And we have our first sub 110 for Pampas and Selene. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the run, and if you are interested in this game, I do recommend checking it out on Steam, especially in this introductory period where there is a bit of a discount along with some bonus content that you can access by purchasing it right now. So thank you very much.